The Fall of Hitler, The Last Days of a Dictator. Chapter 1. The Beginning of the End. It was early 1945, World War II had been going on for almost 6 years. Adolf Hitler, the leader of Nazi Germany, had once been powerful. His army had conquered many countries in Europe. But now, things were different. Germany was losing the war. The Allies, Britain, the United States, and the Soviet Union were getting closer to Berlin, the capital of Germany. Hitler had believed that his army was the strongest in the world. But in 1944, Germany had lost a big battle in Russia called the Battle of Stalingrad. After that, the Soviet army started pushing the Germans back. In the West, the Americans and the British had landed in France on D-Day. June 6, 1944, they were moving toward Germany from the other side. Hitler was trapped. Chapter 2. The Battle for Berlin. By April 1945, the Soviet army was very close to Berlin. They had millions of soldiers, and they were bombing the city day and night. The German army was weak, and many soldiers were too young or too old to fight. There was little food, and people in the city were scared. Hitler refused to leave Berlin. His generals told him to escape to the mountains in southern Germany, where he could still fight. But Hitler said no. He wanted to stay in Berlin until the end. He believed that if Germany lost, it was because the people were not strong enough. He blamed everyone except himself. Chapter 3. Hitler's Bunker. Hitler was hiding in a secret underground bunker beneath the city. It was dark and cold, but it was safe from bombs. He lived there with his closest followers, including his girlfriend, Eva Braun, and his loyal officers. They knew the war was lost, but they were too afraid to tell Hitler. Inside the bunker, Hitler was not the strong leader he had once been. He was sick and his hands shook. He was angry all the time. He gave orders that made no sense, telling soldiers to fight when there were no soldiers left. Chapter 4. The Final Days. By April 29, 1945, the Soviet army was inside Berlin. They were fighting street by street, getting closer to Hitler's bunker. That night, Hitler did something surprising. He married Eva Braun. They had been together for many years, but he had never married her before. They had a small wedding inside the bunker, and the next day, Hitler made his final decision. He did not want to be captured by the Soviet army. He knew that if they caught him, they would punish him for the terrible things he had done. So, on April 30th, 1945, Hitler and Eva Braun said goodbye to their followers. They went into a small room and ended their own lives. Chapter 5. The End of the War. The next day, the people in the bunker tried to escape, but many were caught. The Soviet soldiers soon found out that Hitler was dead. On May 2nd, Berlin surrendered. Just a few days later, on May 8th, Germany officially surrendered. The war in Europe was over. The world celebrated, but the war had caused great pain. Millions of people had died. Cities were destroyed. People had lost their homes. The world promised never to let something like this happen again. Chapter 6. What happened next? After Hitler's death, many of his top officers were arrested. Some were put on trial for their crimes. Others ran away and hid. Germany was divided into two parts, West Germany and East Germany. The Soviet Union controlled the East, while the West was controlled by the United States, Britain, and France. Over time, Germany changed. The people rebuilt their country. They learned from history and tried to make sure such terrible events never happened again. Conclusion: a lesson from history. The fall of Hitler was an important moment in history. It showed that even the most powerful leaders can be defeated. It also reminded the world about the dangers of war and dictatorship. This story teaches us that power does not last forever, and in the end, truth and justice always win.